All right, we're bringing on Liam O'Rourke, author of Crazy Like a Fox, one of the best books, wrestling books that I've read on Brian Pillman. Also, Kyle Ross, a.k.a. The Boss from Top Rope Nation. These two gentlemen do a podcast together. Sell the podcast for 30 seconds here, Kyle.
Oh, you want me to? Oh, boy. Here we go. So, yes, you mentioned Top Rope Nation, a phenomenal weekly podcast I do with your good friends Ryan Drosty and Justin Joint, two men
Yes.
you know that we've all hung out together, and Liam
Love
knows
you guys.
as well. Yes, the three of us do that. But I also do a podcast with Liam. I've known Liam for a very long time. I've actually, what was it, 2006 maybe? Or something. Let's go with that. And we do a podcast, Squared Circle Gazette. It was a podcast. It's Liam's podcast. And Liam just one day messaged me. He's like, I have all these observer notes on 1990, and there's a great story to be told. And I was like, what if we did a podcast about that? He's like, what, you and me about 1990 WWF? I said, yes. And so we did it. And it was in 3 parts. And we liked it so much. I said, what if we did 1991? And that was a lot of hard work. And I said, but by God, Liam, we're into the weeds so much. What if we did 1992? And that was a lot of hard work too. And we just wrapped up, as a matter of fact, just days ago, Liam and I recorded the last part of our look at 1992, starting with Bret Hart's title win through the end of the year. And so we have now covered 3 full years, the first 3 years, the 1990s WWF over at Squared Circle Gazette. They are long shows. I will give people a heads up now. They are 3 hours in length, every episode, basically. You don't have to listen to it all at once, but by God, you have to listen to it.
Okay, so the reason why I wanted the both of you on now we did another, it was actually 30 some odd minutes on WCW 96 stuff for my Patreon. If people want to hear more from these guys after you listen to this, patreon.com/Fight Game Media. So the reason why I wanted to bring you guys on, because I've had this theory. While I do enjoy this time frame of WWE more than previous years, and way more than like 2 or 3 and 4 years ago. I think this version of WWE, what they're doing is much better because they have hotter characters. The programs feel hotter. I've sensed that there's a little bit of Emperor's New Clothes with Triple H here, in that a lot of the benefit of the doubt that Triple H gets is just because he's not a giant dick like Vince McMahon is. Right? Like, I mean,
certainly one way to put it. Yes.
And that's like, I grew up a fan of Vince McMahon, but all of this information that comes out about him that, probably a lot of people secretly did know, like, he's just not a good dude, right? Like, that's just ultimately what it is. And so when you have Triple H coming in, and the face of him and how he speaks and everything, he's coming in like the nice guy, like the good guy. And so when the fan base goes, oh, we got rid of the old man, and now here's the guy who we watched our entire careers as WWE fans, like it just feels fresher. It feels better. It feels like you're supporting something that is not terrible or not bad or is not immoral, right? So and the reason why I say this is because if I think about what the things that I really like about WWE right now, they were all kicked off by Vince, and Triple H just kind of had to run with the playbook. If I think about all the things that I don't like about WWE right now, these are all people that Triple H brought back that Vince had fired, right?
Yes.
And so now to some fans, maybe they do love Dexter Lumis. Oh, great guy. He's been around forever. He gets a shot on the big. But to me, it's like,
show yourself if you think that. By the way,
yeah, sure. But there might be a few.
Email Garrett if you really believe that.
But am I leaning more towards how you guys feel about this, or do you actively think that even what's going on in WWE is just not different than what it was? And I'll let Kyle go first.
Yeah, I just want to say this real quick because I know Liam go. My co-host on Top Rope Nation, Justin Joint, I thought made the perfect analogy with this change from Triple H or from Vince McMahon to Triple H. Triple H essentially inherited a mansion that had a lot of dog poop on the front yard. And Triple H, what he's been doing, he's picked up the dog crap off the front yard. We don't get those really hideous, unfunny skits so much anymore. But to your point, and I'm sure Liam is going to then take the ball and run wild with this, I don't think it's that different. I do think Vince got the ball rolling with a lot of this stuff. And all the good stuff that you see, yes, Triple H inherited. As a matter of fact, Liam, I believe we did a podcast where we said Triple H wouldn't be all that different.
Once. We did. We predicted. We saw, because again, like, I think that a big part of this, the Emperor's New Clothes is such an appropriate term. This has already happened with Triple H and NXT, where the belief it's guilt-free acceptance of the company, because you've known for the last 20 years, as things have not been going so great for WWE creatively speaking, that like, okay, well, it's Vince. Everything that's wrong, it's Vince. Triple H comes along. He kind of, he does NXT, which for a long time helped his perception greatly, until it kind of all fell apart there at the end in quite spectacular fashion. But when he comes in, like you say, it's like, okay, now it's going to allow us to kind of believe that things are different. And even though there's not that many things that actually are different, other than some of the faces have returned, I think that it's a pretty telling situation that we have here, where, and the thing is too, it's like, it'd be one thing if it was just the current audience, but the audience is developing, and the audience is great, and they're doing well in terms of ticket sales and stuff like that. So there are signs that this is not just the same people watching and saying, oh, well, now it's great. It's like, well, to various degrees and various metrics, things are working better.
It also should be noted, Triple H, and this was smart of him. I thought it was transparent. I'm sure you guys picked up on it. It's funny that the last guy who seemingly picked up on it was Vince McMahon himself. Triple H was using NXT to white knight himself vis-a-vis Vince. The whole thing was like, he totally laid into like the better than Raw, better than SmackDown chants. And that was the whole thing. And then Vince one day, I think, realized what was going on there and got very angry about it and started just smacking all the NXT people around that would come up. And it looked like Triple H was done, right? Until he wasn't, and then was in charge of the company. Very interesting, that timeline of events, by the way.
So it's I mean, right on what you said, because I think Vince was pretty jealous of the praise that Triple H would get, right? Because there's a moment where it looks like Triple H is going to be the successor. And then Vince goes, oh, no, I'm not going anywhere. And in fact, I'm bringing back these older guys who were here with me before. Bruce Pritchard, Johnny Ace, before Johnny Ace got let go. But and Triple H kind of got demoted, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and it was almost to say, look, you're not a genius. I'm the genius. You're learning under me. And I'll say when you get, it's kind of like he put him in his place, which I found to be very interesting. But understanding some of the corporate, machinations that, as I do, I get it at the same time, because it is really power is ultimately about the struggle and who stays on top. And Vince is unwilling to leave. Still today, he is unwilling to leave after having some of the worst public press of anyone.
He don't care, man. He's old, and he thinks
since Donald Trump, right?
Yeah,
like this,
yeah.
And they remove him. Now, what do you think about this? He wants to come back, and this is not that long ago. And Triple H, Nick Khan, and Stephanie all vote no. And then he forces his way back in, and then they have to vote yes, right? Like, they have to be okay with it. Like, that is crazy.
Yeah, I love this. What a great chess game we've got going on here. So the one thing that's interesting, the Triple H demotion, lest we forget. And actually, this is a really interesting thing, because it dates back to something, as we're talking, not to completely just plug our show that we're doing on 1991, 1992 incessantly here, but
no, I want to hear it, because you guys are doing the research.
This is classic Vince, in the sense that anything that's happened over the course of Vince's run from the 90s onwards that was something that appealed to wrestling fans more than his perception of what the wider audience is. Things like Ric Flair coming from the other side and being treated as an equal to Hogan, not so much in the way that he does it. There are certain things that Vince, I feel, he has this blocker. If it appeals to one segment of the audience, it has an inability to appeal beyond that. And when he put NXT against AEW, which was Vince's decision, not Triple H's.
Yes.
Vince made a critical error in that he put NXT in a war that he could lose. And they did. severely. And as a result, to me, that was Vince's, okay, I'm right. My idea of this thing that you have been cultivating and building for years, we put that on a national television stage against this, and it got its ass kicked. So that what you are doing, Hunter, is not going to work. So it was almost like this kind of, and we know that the classic thing with Vince McMahon, he wants to compete with anybody, even if it's in a situation where the chicks are already stacked in his favor. So of course, hey Hunter, no, you're not going to get it because we gave you the chance, and my instinct on what you're doing is correct because you failed.
I want to go back even further because I believe that when Vince did the thing where he added Bischoff and Heyman as the general managers, you guys remember that short-lived, short-lived time when he tried to create this, this thing. I asked Dave Meltzer, I go, okay, Triple H, Vince thinks this is going to suck. And thus he can blame Bischoff, he can blame Heyman, and that's fine. But if you put Triple H in here and it sucks, then publicly, when Triple H does eventually have to take over, he's already got one failure under his thing. So that I believe that was why Triple H was not put in one of those roles. But then the strategy had to have changed because of what you just said, which is he put Triple H in that spot of AEW versus NXT, unless he just outright did not think that they could lose.
Okay. This is the key question with that.
Go for it.
Did Vince do that? Was he naive and thinking NXT would win, or did he want Hunter to fail?
I think he wanted NXT to win. I think that he thought AEW was going to appeal to the same audience as NXT, but NXT had the WWE power behind it. They had the advertising. I think he thought it was the perfect one to go against them.
Do you also think he knew next to nothing about NXT?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I do too.
It's fascinating.
I don't think he was paying. That's like the fascinating thing is that while Triple H is white knighting himself at Vince's expense down in NXT, I don't think Vince was. I think he was doing other things. You remember he was trying to get like the XFL going, and there was lots of. I don't think he was. I think he was napping, and then he realized it, and that's when he laid the smackdown, so to speak, on Triple H. Then all of a sudden Vince wasn't in power anymore. That's very odd.
And in some ways, being a leader and you're sort of on top of it, delegating and going, okay, I trust you to take this. I trust you to take this. Like, I think those are good qualities in a leader. But when you're so out of it, you have no idea what's going on. And you're actually putting this guy out here to who's going to be the heir apparent, supposedly. And he is currently, unless Vince just comes back and moves him back down again. But you can't, as a leader, you cannot set your people up to fail. And that's what he did with AEW. Now, maybe he did think that, well, we have the better marketing, USA is behind us. We're gonna figure out a way, and we're gonna play some dirty business and tell TNT that the stuff not needed. We'll give you guys a digital show or something, whatever he was gonna do. But that was just a major error. He was like, he just had his eye off the ball, like you said. And, that whole aspect of this whole thing, where we are today with Triple H, and we'll bring it back here to current, is a fascinating sort of ride. Someone's going to need to, maybe Dave's upcoming Observer yearbooks on like 19 and 20 and 21, or we'll tell that story. But so let's go back to current, because they had one of the hottest angles that they have ever had, and definitely in recent memory with Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn and this bloodline thing. And the way that they got out of that was to beat Sami on a big pay-per-view. And even further, they just beat Sami on SmackDown with Solo Sikoa. So they have,
and in Toronto,
they're making sure that Cody is here, and they're making sure that the fans really understand that Sami is really here, even though the fans want him to possibly be an equal or maybe even higher than Cody. Understand, this is a definitely a WWE sort of play, right? The little guy, the ugly guy, he can never get over. We have the blonde, blue-eyed guy with the muscles, and he's going to be the one.
And then so, that tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what was your take? And we'll go, Liam, we'll go you first. What was your whole take on just the way that they did that. It's like, we've seen this before. Zack Ryder gets over. He's not who we want to get over, right? Daniel Bryan gets over. Oh, CM Punk left. Okay, we have to. We'll let Daniel Bryan, get over to an extent. They did the same thing with Rey Mysterio. Fans wanted Rey. Vince is like, okay, I'm going to give you Rey, and then I'm going to kill his title run to show you how wrong you guys were. Right? This is the WWE playbook. What was your whole take on this bloodline storyline and how we are to where we are right now?
Yeah, it's a really interesting deal because this, to be honest, the success of WWE right now is a pyramid bouncing on the head of this storyline, the way I see it. And not just with Sammy, but obviously the Cody situation and Roman. It's about the top guys. Right. That's why things are going better for them with ticket sales and stuff like that. It's all around this. As much, and this is why, I have a lot of angst against the way WWE does things. And this is one of them where, they actually, even though they created this situation over the course of months, that was a well-told story that had these points that its audience lapped up, and they wanted to pay money to see the result that they want to see at the end of this story. For a story they had absolutely zero intention of delivering what what they were trying to get the audience to want in the first place, and booked it at a time in February where they can't win. No matter what they do. If they give Sammy the win in Montreal, it's awesome. But then they got nothing set up for WrestleMania other than a Cody Rhodes three-way, a babyface match. It's it's messy. And I understand the idea. Well, the WrestleMania tickets are sold and all of that. But the whole point is, the whole idea of delivering on this story is going forward. What do you have? What's next? That's going to be the key here. The business is going to be good up to WrestleMania. I'm not surprised. The fact that business has not been like this for several years is an indictment of the past several years, as you've said, Garrett, in terms of things not upticking towards this period of time of the year. I think that the fact that it's doing well now does speak to the success of the story, but it was done in such a way where they were never going to give the audience what they wanted. They knew that from the beginning, and they also positioned it at such a time where the fans were going to have to eat it. And the current nature of the fan base is they will eat it, and they will see what's next, and that's okay. And as long as, they get the numbers they want from WrestleMania viewing figures, I'm interested now in what they do, because to me, it's not so much about what they do for the next month, but from April onwards for the rest of the year. If they give it to Cody, does Cody work away from Roman? Because Roman's not going to be around for most of the summer, I wouldn't imagine. So what happens there? And does with that be better than had Sammy been in this position and Sammy had the summer? Because again, if Roman's not around and the story's not in play, it's kind of hard. So there's so many elements to this, but so much of it, to me, my overwhelming takeaway is just that not much has changed in the way they execute stories, because this was something that even when, and again, you can tell it's Roman and Heyman who are so responsible for what we're seeing. And of course, it's been approved by other people, and I understand that. But at the same time, it's this was always going to end one way, and it's a way that basically just tells the audience, thanks for wasting your time for the last few months. Now it's time to do what we actually want to do.
Okay. So I want to go back. I think the one thing that is different about WWE just recently than what it has been over the last decade is that it does have an identity. I think everybody is on board with what they want to do. And I'll double back to that, what I think they may want to do and end up doing through WrestleMania in a minute. But you look back at the previous decade of WWE, it really is a promotion with an identity crisis. The first half of the 2010s are defined. You had these WrestleManias that did incredible numbers, right? With Rock and Cena at the forefront. But underneath that, you had the stuff that you mentioned, Punk and Bryan, stuff that Vince begrudgingly went along with. He had to do
the audience
audience demanded it. Punk, causes a brief spike in interest. In the case of Daniel Bryan, the alternative just stunk. Yeah, and they had nothing else, and anybody would have gone with Daniel Bryan in that situation.
Batista and Randy Orton, the main event at WrestleMania.
And then the second half of the 2010s, you have an identity crisis where they want to build around somebody, but the audience is like, no, we don't want you to build around this person as a babyface, that being Roman Reigns.
Yes.
Then once they figured out how to present Roman Reigns properly, this promotion, whether you like it or you're maybe like us, you're not as keen on it, week to week and stuff, it definitely changed. And that's when it just had a trickle down effect on the rest of the promotion. This promotion has a clear identity with Roman Reigns at the top, and everyone's just kind of like no one disputes who until like the Sammy deal. There was no dispute that Roman Reigns should have been the world champion, right? Like no one ever like sometimes people are like, maybe Drew should go over, but then everyone just moves past that, right? And it'll be interesting to see what they do with Sammy. And that brings me to WrestleMania and the topic at hand. How confident, because everyone keeps saying, oh, well, they want Cody, and we're going to and we're going to make sure everyone understands Cody is higher than Sammy. Cody is great. Sammy, you thought he was great, but hey, he's not as great as Cody. How confident are we that Cody Rhodes is winning at WrestleMania?
Okay. Here's my confidence. So my confidence level is based solely on one thing. They're in a wrestling war. They would love to bring over some of AEW's wrestlers. Kenny Omega, I think, being A1 right now. Their best recruiting tool to AEW is to have Cody Rhodes win at WrestleMania. That is my point. There's other people who say, oh, Roman has to have the 1,000 days and then Cody can win at the next show. I think he's got to win at WrestleMania because WWE is a mark for themselves when it comes to this WrestleMania moment, right? They tell the fans this is the most important thing every year. So if Cody loses, I mean, we might be, Lex Luger 1993. Here.
To such a degree.
Yeah. But
where's the balloon?
Then they may say, well, we'll make it up at this King of the Ring show that they're doing or whatever, and then Cody can win there. To me, I think that's a mistake. Even SummerSlam, even saving the win for SummerSlam, I think is a giant mistake. Roman and the Bloodline have done so much to put the eyeballs on this storyline. We need a payoff. And I think the longer that Cody waits, the longer we get to hear these promos where he's using all these $10 words when a 50-cent word for the audience is necessary. The emotion that people are going to get tired of that at some point. Yeah. And so I think you do it now, you get the Cody run, and then you figure out what the fan base thinks of him by SummerSlam, and then you figure out where you go for the next year's WrestleMania. But to tell the AEW locker room, MJF, Kenny Omega, the Bucks, whatever, hey, we can actually do what you guys have been doing in AEW. We can shine that spotlight on you better than AEW even can. And here's how we're going to do it. Look at where Cody was this time last year or 2 years ago versus where he is now. He's on top of the world. He's the number one wrestler in the game right now. And that's how they see it. That's not going to work on Moxley. That's not going to work on Danielson. They've been there before. For the people who haven't been there before, maybe even like a Wardlow probably fits better in WWE than he does in AEW. Like they will go, oh, that's how they see. That's how we can be presented on that show. That's why I think they got to do it.
The dangling carrot. Yeah, I think just today, because I know Kyle's going to hit the ground running here in a second. I can see him gearing up. Just before we hit at this point on the timing of Cody winning, which I think is actually like a really, really interesting topic. The reason why things are better and why there's an identity to this company in the first place is because they actually did what the audience was telling them to do for years with Roman. They actually listened. They actually listened to the organic, and this is why. Again, like I say, my angst with WWE for years, it was the same. If the audience is telling you something,
he sells T-shirts, Liam.
I can see that he sells T-shirts. He's selling a lot more fucking tickets now than he was T-shirts then, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, but this is the deal, though, isn't it? It's like you actually listen to the organic. So, business turns around when you listen to the organic inclinations of your audience. Well, here's the organic inclinations of the audience with Sami Zayn, and we're just going to ignore that one. The organic inclination of this audience for this story is Cody pulls the sword out the stone at WrestleMania. And like you say, the longer this story, if he fails at WrestleMania, after this whole thing of I'm going to win the belt for my dad and really hitting the Dusty thing hard, and if he doesn't win, what's he got to come back with? It's going to say, yeah, but this time I'll do it. And the thing is, the audience, they'll probably just accept it and take it anyway.
Yes!
So that's it. It's like that, and this is where my heart for WWE just drops sometimes. Is it's like, even if I want to buy into it, I just know that in the end, even if that will happen, and even if that doesn't happen, and they actually do roll with the punches and they create something good like Roman, it's like if they do get it wrong, the wheel keeps turning. It's not gonna. There is no desire or need to get things completely perfectly right because the infrastructure of the company is so good that it's almost impossible for them to fail.
Can I before we get to Kyle, I want to ask one small thing about what you just said.
Yeah.
This may be Triple H's only WrestleMania that he's ever going to book, right? We don't know that. No, and I'm not saying that as a diss to him. I'm saying that because what if the company gets sold, right?
Yeah.
Like,
true.
So I do think
we'll get the fake Yokozuna next year.
I do think he wants to put his stamp on this show as a way to say, I did this thing correctly, and business was up, not only because Vince set the table, but because I did the things right as well. So I think you're right in most years, but I do think he wants to put his signature on this thing, and the signature is going to be, he wants people to come out of this thing as like, man, Triple H did a great job with this story.
Yeah, I think there's truth to that. I think that this is so much of what we're seeing is about perception at the minute. That's why Dexter Lumis got the call in the first place, I'm sure. But yeah, I think there's truth to that, and that's the thing. It's like, but come WrestleMania, does head of the board Vinny swoop in and
very
true, do what he wants, because it's more important to him than ever for the stock price to be up, for things to be swimming along. And if he believes the right thing is not what Hunter believes is the right thing for his own interest, who's gonna win?
Yeah, does he? Your point is well taken, Garrett. What you said about making AEW or making WWE like a destination for AEW wrestlers, like certainly putting the title on Cody Rhodes would shine a light on that. But at the same time, you brought up Vince in the '90s, Liam, earlier, and like part of me always like thinks like Vince doesn't want to put over a guy who left him and went to AEW. He wants to like smack him at the worst possible moment. That's like right out of the Vince McMahon playbook. And we say that, and you mentioned the obedient audience that they have. I think that's also very important to point out with WWE.
Yes.
Since AEW came about, I think the more rebellious element of that we saw in the buildings, it's gone because they just watched AEW more now. And so the WWE audience doesn't complain about the booking so much anymore. So that being said, I think we can all look forward to WrestleMania when Cody gets a count out win in the balloons.
I hope so.
Just like Lex Luger. How great would that be? I'll call you. God. I don't care if it's 5 a.m.
Wait,
I will call you if Cody gets a count out win in balloons.
You know where SummerSlam is this year?
In Detroit, yeah, dude.
On the 30th anniversary of that show.
Yeah. The Motor City, ironically enough, where the Lex Express broke down for the last time.
He crisscrossed this great country of ours.
You know they did that Lex A&E biography, and they just showed how miserable he really was as a babyface.
Oh, the thing with Lex is, and I'm not like gonna knock the guy. I mean, I wouldn't like be like chomping at the bit to like go down to town shaking hands with fans, but like he hated doing that.
Yeah, and at that
point,
at that point, he wasn't a natural babyface in that way. Yeah. He wanted to go lift weights and he wanted to watch his diet, and that's what he cared about the most. Okay, last question. But you had something else to say. Go ahead.
The buy rate of SummerSlam '93 actually justifies Lex not going over. I just think they made him look like a complete ass by celebrating like we had just won the war with balloons when he wins by countout.
Dude, it's Road Warriors '87 Starrcade for me all over again.
Yes.
I was so disappointed, and then I'm like, why are these geeks celebrating? They know the rules. They just lost this match.
Yeah, like I'm 13 years old. I'm like, dude, I know he didn't win the title. Are you trying to like act like I don't know that he's not?
And they sold it in the build that it's his only chance.
Yes, yes.
He fucking loses.
All right, last question, because I think this is a big part of what they're doing with Roman Reigns here, which is, do you think he can successfully turn babyface and be the babyface that they had always wanted him to be based off of this character? And I'll let you go first, Kyle.
He's already kind of there, isn't he? Like, I think they actually, if they want him to be babyface, I don't think they need to change the character. Like, just have him start working heels, because like he comes out and does the acknowledge me bit and the crowd is into that.
Yeah.
It's so funny because this company, one of the hallmarks of its sort of what I'll call, and some people may get very mad at this, that's okay, I'm a big boy, I could take it, but like a 20-year decline creatively is an inability to book baby faces.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Steve Austin and The Rock rewrote the rules of what was a cool baby face.
And not to cut you off, but AEW currently has the same problem.
Yes, all wrestling has it, because people think baby faces still need to be nice and like good people. But it's not true. Like no. There are people who will go back. I see this all the time. People who do Raw reviews like, oh man, The Rock was kind of a real asshole. Yes, but people liked that.
You just have to get over on the heel.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
They like
You're an asshole to the right person. Yeah.
Yes. Hogan, the same thing in Hogan. People are like, oh, Hogan was a real, he kind of did want Miss Elizabeth. I can see why Sam was like,
lost Hogan.
But people in the 80s didn't care. They just liked Hulk Hogan.
Jealous eyes for sure.
People just people now all see Reigns as the star they all wanted him to be. So he's already kind of there, to be honest. Like, the worst thing they could do is if they wanted him to be a babyface, would be to make any change to this character. Because he was say what you will about Roman Reigns. I think Roman Reigns has always been a very talented wrestler.
Me too.
He was just one of the worst booked top baby faces ever. They knew the crowd didn't really like him, and then he would do what we were just talking about with Cody. He would fail in every big spot. So everyone's like, "Oh, we don't like this guy, and he's a loser." Oh, what a winning combo this is! Now he's a badass. He's like
he wins all the time,
and he wins all the time. And presto, everybody likes him. Wow, what an incredible concept!
You take a cool guy and you give him a milquetoast personality, and you expect that to work. And just let him be a cool guy, and that's what he is right now. He's a cool guy, just someone that's like, I could have a drink with Roman,
Yeah, exactly.
But before, when he's doing his babyface stuff, you're like, this guy. I don't know if I want to hang out with him.
You mentioned earlier about enjoying WWE now more than you had the previous couple years. 2015 to 2020, WWE is arguably the biggest waste of time.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Like of any wrestling pro. Well, no, because you look back at it, because it's what Liam said. We all wanted Roman to turn, and they were like, fuck the odd. No, he's not. He's good. Vince is like, I'm going to find the right moment, and I'm going to be right. He's going to get this classic babyface reaction. It never worked. And then they did the thing everyone said they should do 5 years earlier, and it worked.
The most underrated part of this whole thing, if COVID doesn't happen, we may not get it, right? Because Roman had to go away. He got sick. He had to go away because of COVID, because of his immune system. And then they're like, okay, like he's been gone for a while. Now we switch the character and he comes back, and it's kind of genius. But it's also a real world thing that if it doesn't happen, we may not have this version of Roman.
Except they turned him heel during the Thunderdome era. That was the oddest thing to me, when there was no one around.
They spend every show piping in crowd reactions. You can finally get him cheered by just pressing a button, and they turn him heel.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it was the oddest thing too, because it wasn't really a heel turn when he first did it. But then, like, all the people who are like in the co-opted media with the blue check marks, not you, Ryan Drosty, but like all the people with the blue check marks next to their name who are co-opted media. Like, we're like, that was a heel turn. I'm like, it was? And then, like, I turn on the TV the next week. I'm like, okay, I guess that was a heel turn.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Gaslighting mob boss Roman Reigns is so much more. Again, like, the thing is, this stuff feeds on itself. If you have, so this babyface who we're trying to push with a milquetoast personality, the crowd's not getting into him, so we don't want to pull the trigger because we don't want the backlash. So we won't go too hard on it, which means that he looks like a loser and a geek and he's playing anyway. So, like, of course it builds the resistance. And again, it's like the entire structure of what the wrestling business is listening to the audience and reacting to it and adjusting what you're doing accordingly. And when they finally do, it's working. And that's why this upcoming month is such a fascinating study in the current brains.
Yes,
we
may have to come back.
Yes.
In the summer to see how this all shook out. But hey, this was awesome. You guys, like, I'm sure this is what I'm going to do. I have downloaded your show before, and then I kind of get intimidated by the length, and I go, oh, like, because I'm a complete, like, I like to, if I start something, I like to finish it. Wow. And so I'm like,
good luck.
Like this is so hard. But what I'm going to do is I'm driving to Tucson to see my kid. I'm not flying because the flights are ridiculous. Not that I can't afford. I just don't want to afford this flight. It's so ridiculous. So I think I'm going to drive, and so that's like 12 hours one way. So I have to Tucson and back home, and I think I'm going to make sure that I get through the 90s stuff with you guys, because you guys have such great chemistry. I could tell, it comes across that you guys like each other as people. So go listen to their show. I'll put the link to the Apple podcast feed in the show notes here. But
Thank you
no,
very much.
great. You guys are great. And we'll have to revisit this because this was a lot of fun.
Until then, to count outs and balloons.